Hi everyone, today we'll be talking about the minimum liability insurance required for auto insurance in Washington State. This will be covering Objective 1, which says you should understand the two types of insurance you're required to have when you drive in Washington State, what they cover, what they don't cover, and when you might consider increasing those minimum limits and paying more for your insurance. Let's get started. Liability insurance. So before we jump into two types of coverage, we're going to talk about what liability insurance is overall. It helps you pay for injuries to other people and damage to their property when you cause an accident. So notice how this is all focused on other people. This does not help you pay for damages to your own property, like your vehicle or things inside your vehicle, or injuries to you or anyone in your vehicle with you. So it only covers, liability insurance only covers people, other people, when you cause an accident. It does not help you pay for anything when someone else is at fault. So if your car is sitting parked on the side of the road and someone crashes into it, that wasn't your fault. Your liability insurance won't help you. Their liability insurance will be paying you to help repair your damaged vehicle. So liability insurance is all about making sure that when you cause an accident, that there's money there to help pay for the other person's damages and injuries. All right, in Washington State, you're required to have two types of insurance. They're both liability insurances. The first one is called bodily injury liability. And as it sounds, it's all about injury or death of people when you, and here's the little key, or someone borrowing your car are determined to be at fault for an accident. So when you let someone borrow your car, you might think that their insurance will cover down if they crash your car. But insurance actually follows the car and not the person. So if you let someone borrow their car, you're exposing yourself for having an insurance claim because they may have done something reckless or irresponsible with your car. So be really careful when you let someone borrow your car. All right, so back to it. Bodily injury is all about injury or death of others. So how much are you required to have in Washington State? This is a little bit complicated. So you're required to have $50,000, at least $50,000 of coverage per accident, with a per person limit of $25,000 per person, at least that much per person. So if you buy minimum insurance in Washington State, this is what you're going to get. Total of $50,000 with no more than $25,000 per any one person. Okay. When should you consider purchasing more? This $50,000 might seem like a lot of money. When it comes to what's included in this are medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering, all those things add up really fast. People can sometimes get injured and be out of work for months. You're paying for all of that if you're at fault. So I would say when you should consider buying higher limits of this as soon as you can possibly afford it to protect yourself financially. What is not covered? So it's a liability insurance. So remember, it does not help pay for injuries to you or your passengers. Anyone in your car is not covered by this insurance. And it doesn't help you pay for anything when someone else is at fault. Okay? So when you're at fault for an accident and someone in your car or you get injured, you have to pay those bills on your own. You're responsible for paying for all the damages. And if the people you crash into, if their injuries are more than what your insurance will cover, again, you're responsible for paying those. Insurance is just helping you pay for the things that you're responsible for, not paying it for you. All right, the second kind of insurance that you need in Washington State is also a liability insurance, but it's called property damage liability. So in this case, it really focuses only on property. So things like the other person's vehicle, or maybe you crash into their fence or their house or anything that they own that was damaged, a tree, they can pull a claim for property damage. And this is only when you're at fault, when you or someone borrowing your car is at fault. How much are you required to have? For this one, you have to have $10,000 of coverage per accident. So that's a pretty small number when you consider that an average new car these days is in the $50,000 range. So if you crash into someone's new car and then you're at fault, you might easily do tens of thousands of dollars of damage. Your insurance will kick in and help you with the first $10,000, but then the rest of it you're still responsible to pay. Remember, insurance isn't taking over the responsibility, it's just helping you pay for what you're responsible for when you cause an accident. When should you purchase more? This is another one where I recommend that you, as soon as you can afford it, you think about upping your minimums up to a higher number. So instead of 10,000, 30, 40, 50,000, 100,000, wherever you feel comfortable with that expense for your risk. What's not covered? So it's a liability insurance, so it does not help you pay for damages to your vehicle. So if you crash into someone's car and you total your vehicle, your property damage liability will not help you pay for that at all, ever. It does not help you with your stuff. And it does not help you if someone else is at fault. So if someone else crashes into your car that's parked on the side of the road, their property damage liability will kick in and help you pay for yours. If their insurance doesn't fully pay for your damages, that other person's responsible for paying you for your damages. If they can't afford to, then, or they don't for some reason, you can sue them, but you may not get your money back. So you just might be out that amount. So we'll talk in the future about other types of coverage that are more than just the minimum required that'll help protect you in those situations. All right, the next thing I want to do is show you how to use some insurance tables. These insurance tables will help us kind of organize in our thinking about auto insurance and what coverages cover what and how it all applies. So an insurance table looks like this on the right. And here's our scenario. So after purchasing minimum insurance, you were quickly checking a text message, ooh, not good, and crashed into a car stopped at a red light. So from the description of this, I would say you're 100% at fault for this. As a result of the accident, the other driver's car was totaled, $17,000 for their car, $18,000 for their medical bills. There was a passenger in the car and the driver other car that was injured for $7,500. Your car was damaged with $2,000 of damage. Your medical bills were $1,500 and your passenger medical bills were $3,500. To be clear, because you're at fault for this accident, you are responsible for paying all of these costs. Now let's go look to see how much your insurance will help you out. All right, so this first one was their car was totaled. You have minimum insurance, so you have $10,000 of property damage insurance. So under policy type next to the $17,000, I'm going to write in PDL for property damage liability. The covered amount, that's how much your insurance is going to pay. In this case, you're more than the maximum, so your insurance will pay $10,000, the maximum amount. The out-of-pocket is any leftover amount that you still have to pay on your own. So because your insurance only paid $10,000, the other $7,000 is going to be out of pocket for you. So these two numbers should add up to be what you owe for the accident. All right, now their medical bills were $18,000. Now you have a total coverage of $50,000 with no more than $25,000 per person. So this is less than that $25,000. So it's going to actually be fully covered by your insurance, and the policy type will be bodily injury liability. That's the policy that's going to pay for it. It's going to pay the full $18,000. Now it could go up to 25. I'm not going to put the 25 there because it won't actually pay out 25. It only pays out 18. Now technically you still have $32,000 of coverage left in your BIL property. So you're out of pocket here, $0. That insurance saved you a lot of money right there. All right, so the driver's passenger was also injured and have this much injury. So that's going to come out of your bodily injury liability. You still have $32,000 left, easily covers that $7,500, and that's not above the per person limit of 25. So it's going to be fully covered here at $7,500 with $0 out of pocket. So yay, that was really helpful. Now your $2,000 of damage, your car is not covered by your liability coverage, your property damage liability, so it's not going to have any policy type. There's not going to be any coverage amount, which means the full $2,000 is out of your pocket. The same thing is true for injuries to people in your vehicle and you. Your medical bills are not covered by liability. You chose to have the cheapest liability insurance that you could possibly get, which means it's not going to cover much, and it's definitely not going to cover anything for you. And then last one, your passenger is also not covered. You're going to also be responsible for paying their medical bills. So in the end, your insurance is going to cover $35,500 of the total cost of this accident. You're going to have to come up with another $14,000 on your own. So we'll learn about in the future other types of insurance policy or insurance coverages that you can add to your policy to help protect you from these other out-of-pocket expenses. So far, so good. You guys are doing great. Hang in there. We got one more table to go. In this one, I'm going to do it a little differently. Oh, wait, before we move on, think about how this situation would change if you were not at fault, if it was the other person checking a text message while you were sitting at a red light. Pause the video, think that through. Once you have your answer, play the video again, and we'll talk over that real quick. Okay, so you're back. What would happen if the situation was reversed and you were not at fault? Well, you would have nothing in the covered amounts. So all those would be zeros because your insurance wouldn't kick in, you were not at fault. The out-of-pocket expenses for the other person would be the same as yours if they had minimum insurance. The only trouble now is to get your full $17,000 of damage from the other person, you have to get them to give you $7,000, which they didn't have on hand. So you may be forced to sue them and go to court and try and collect that money that way, which you still may not collect it. So even though you're not at fault, you're not fully covered, you're not safe. The other person might not be able to pay for your damages. So in the future, we'll talk about other coverages that help protect you when the other person hits you and you still want some more coverage. All right, next scenario. So read over this scenario, fill in the table the best you can, see what you get, pause the video, and then see what the answers are at the end. I think you know what you're supposed to do. I think I said it badly. All right, pause the video now. Okay, you're back. So hopefully you have your table all filled in. Let's just check our answers real quick. I'll bring them up all at once. If you got all of these right, stop the video, go do what's next. Go do the practice. If you missed some of the stuff and you're wanting to kind of talk about this, I'll walk through it real quick with you. Okay, here you injured a pedestrian at $80,000 of medical bills for that pedestrian, and you hit two cars with lots of damage to two cars, and your stuff was already injured. So the $80,000, even though you have $50,000 of total coverage, it's maxed at $25,000 per person. So the coverage amount is only $25,000, leaving you $55,000 of out-of-pocket expenses. Your property damage had a $10,000 coverage amount. I applied that to this first vehicle and said that my out-of-pocket is $15,000. In reality, what would happen is your insurance company would split part of the payment to each of the two vehicles based on how much they were damaged. We don't need that level of detail. For our out-of-pocket expenses, it doesn't matter who gets the $10,000 or how much they get, as long as it all gets used up. I could have put $8,000 here and $2,000 here, and it would have been the same math in the end. Okay, so where you put these exact numbers doesn't really matter as long as it shows that you're using your policy up and that your out-of-pocket expense is whatever's left over. Now for your damage and your injury, there's no coverage by liability insurance. If you want to cover your stuff, you have to buy different types of insurance, which we'll talk about later. In the end, in this accident, you're at $35,000 of coverage from your insurance company. Yay, that's a huge help, but you're still left with $89,500 of out-of-pocket expense. Ouch, that could be a disastrous go in life. All right, best of luck to you. Go work on the practice assignment. Let me know if you need any help. You are doing fantastic.